What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I'm here making this video to talk about a subject that we've been talking about, at least, we've been talking about on this channel for the past week or so, and that is the possibility that there might not be a season to be played in 2020. And I have an article. Obviously, it would be due to, the coronavirus. And so I have an article from ESPN that I want to read that includes comments from the top NFL doctor, Alan Sills. And he's weighing in on whether or not he thinks that, the season will start on time. And so he obviously has a lot of, important information and opinions in that regard, considering, if they can't do player physicals, because players will get hurt throughout the season if they're unable to see them, treat them because of all of this, etc., etc. Obviously, that causes problems, concerns, and complications, and, could eventually affect whether or not there is a season to be played. We already know that OTAs have been postponed indefinitely because of this. The draft is still expected to go on. And again, I think that it likely will no matter what, because that's something that they absolutely could do digitally. But it looks like there is potential for this season to be ended prematurely because of this thing, because it is super bad. And so real quick, I do want to give you guys some numbers. I did a video recently on updating, updates on COVID-19 and so on and so forth a couple of videos ago. I'm going to give you a couple of those numbers. I've been doing a thread on Twitter that every so often I update the numbers based off of the Johns Hopkins tracker. If you guys want to know the status and what's going on with this thing, that's a great place to look. I do have the link to the tracker in my Twitter thread. So, that's another good reason to follow me at Dillon Tartaro. And, but right now I am going to give you my latest one as of this morning. And I'm just going to read through it real quick just so you guys can understand the severity of the situation right now. So, and then I'll get into this article from ESPN talking about, the likelihood that there's not a 2020 season. All right, real quick for the numbers. At approximately 8 p.m., so last night, right, like I said, I do this every so often, 8 p.m. PST, so Pacific time, so my time here in California, April 2nd, 2020, the worldwide cases were over 1,015,403, with 53,030 deaths at a rate of 5.22255,696. So a little over 5.2%. Now, when I first started doing this, the rate of death was somewhere around 4.5%. It has slowly crept up to, this is the worldwide average as well, right? So this is not any one country or what, this is the worldwide average. It started somewhere around 4.5% when I started doing these threads. It is now up to almost 5.3%. Okay, now Italy has had, I don't know what it is at the moment, but they've had over a 10% death rate at their peak, which is scary and devastating. But let's continue on with this. As of 9:35 a.m. PST, April 3rd, so this morning, cases have risen to 1,056,777, with 55,781 deaths at a rate of 5.27840784. So almost 5.3. So we went from a 5.2 to almost 5.3 in that time span. That's an increase in fatality rate by 0.05585,088%. Obviously, it seems like a small percentage overall, because it's such a small number, but when you take it into the full context of what this is and the fatality rate for diseases, it's pretty high. Especially because a lot of people want to compare this to the flu. The flu generally has a 1% fatality rate, and that's something that we get every year. It's seasonal. Generally speaking, right, it's a common thing, so our bodies build up antibodies to it consistently, right? We're constantly fighting it off. Our bodies get used to it. Coronavirus is not that. We don't get it nearly as frequently, and it's far deadlier, in part because we don't have vaccinations for it like we do with the flu as well, right? So we also have ways to treat it. The best thing that we can do right now is put a person on a ventilator and hope that they come through it. But people have been on ventilators in some cases for 3 or 4 weeks and then still die. So this thing is extremely deadly, and it's getting even more deadly as these numbers continue to go, especially in the United States, because we have incompetent, selfish leadership that only cares about the stock market and their portfolios. Anyway, so that was over a 13-hour, 35-minute span, obviously, because carries over from throughout the night. I was asleep, so I wasn't doing updates. The United States still leads the world in confirmed cases by a growing margin. As of 8 p.m. PST, April 2nd, 2020, the numbers were as follows. So again, as of last night, 8 p.m. Pacific time last night, the U.S. had 245,000 cases. Okay, almost 250,000 cases in America alone as of last night. That 245,070. 129,828 more than Italy, which at the time was the next highest country in cases. So that's more than double, because the Italy at the time had 115,242. More than double the next highest country. Okay? And that's where the death rate currently, as far as I can tell and know, is still the highest. And again, they've had over a 10% rate. Last time I checked, it was 10.8% death rate. Okay? So that's staggering in comparison. And Spain came in at third. Not that this is a race. This is a race you don't want to win. You want to be on the bottom end of this list. But in third was Spain at the time with 112,065. As of this morning at 9:35 a.m. PST, April 3rd, the numbers are as follows. U.S. now has 257,773. That's 140,063 more cases than Spain. Spain overtook Italy as of these numbers. However, I will say that Italy's numbers have not updated in a while. So that could change, and Italy could end up having more than Spain in actuality. But as of right now, and as of this morning and the most recent updated numbers, Spain has overtaken Italy. But we are still, our margin is increasing. We now have 140,063 more cases than the next highest country as of the most updated numbers. Okay, that's insane. But that's, so an increase in cases over that time span. The U.S. has 12,703 new cases. Spain had 5,645. Italy didn't increase, but again, their numbers haven't changed in a while. So I would venture to guess that that will, in fact, change, and probably substantially, unfortunately, once those updated numbers come in. You know, whatever. But that's... It's devastating. This is also devastating. Real quick, and then the fatalities worldwide, 55,781. That's 2,751 more deaths over that 13-hour and 35-minute span since the last time I did it, according to the official numbers. The U.S. has now 6,586 deaths. That's 637 more than the last reported numbers. Spain is 10,348, so they're obviously a lot more than us right now for sure, and they're over 10,000, but we are shooting up with our broken healthcare system, incompetent, selfish, greedy leadership, etc., etc., etc. How far we are behind, the lack of medical supplies. I mean, we have doctors and nurses who are going down to it now. Right? So because they're just so overwhelmed and so inundated with it, they can't, there's nothing they can do, and they don't have the proper equipment. So unfortunately, my guess is that we are going to overtake Spain and Italy in deaths at some point, which is just absolutely tragic. But when you look at the number of cases, again, we more than double the next highest country. And with all those factors, it's projecting to be devastating. So, anyway, they have 10,348. Italy currently, as according to the most updated numbers, is still at 13,915. They've been there for a while. That's obviously a lot of deaths. But again, even when the numbers do come in updated, I'm pretty sure eventually we're going to end up surpassing that because of the status of it here in this country. But Spain had another 587 deaths in their calculation in addition to the last set of numbers. And so, real quick, the last thing I put in this is America is still far from seeing its peak. And with the current projections, we can expect to see between 1 million cases with over 100,000 potential deaths to 100 million cases with millions of potential deaths. So, and that's the range. That's the range of estimates right now. As conservative as, as small a number as, 1 million cases in this country with potentially over, 100,000 or, whatever deaths. I mean, 1 million cases, 1% would be 100,000. The worldwide average right now is 5.2. That'd be over 500,000 people, right? But the upper extremes, if you will, or projections for this is 100 million cases. 100 million cases at 5.2 fatality rate. That's over 5 million people if that ends up being the case. And that is just absolutely devastating. And so it is severe, to say the least. And again, real quick before I go into what this doctor had to say about, the upcoming season, I just want to wish everybody well. I wish everybody safety, especially in Florida. I mean, Ron DeSantis finally put a shutdown to the state, but they are one of the, red states that is very much behind in the curve because of idiot dickhead leadership. And anyway, so I wish you all safety. If you do have to go out for any reason, only emergencies, make sure you're wearing gloves and masks. Keep yourself safe, please, please, please. Otherwise, stay indoors. It's massively severe, and it's only going to continue to get worse. And again, I want to thank anybody who's in essential personnel jobs, grocery store workers, for example. They are doing a tremendous service and putting themselves at risk every day. And so thank you. Also, I hope you guys stay safe. And, let's move on to, because it's going to be a continued thing, unfortunately, and it looks like there is potential for more discussion on this regarding the Dolphins than there will be, games played. There might not be a season, so let's get to that. So NFL's Dr. Alan Sills says certain conditions must be met for season to start on time. Although the NFL remains hopeful of starting its regular season on time and in front of packed stadiums, its chief medical officer, Dr. Alan Sills, said Thursday that certain prerequisites, including widespread testing for the coronavirus, must be met for that to happen. So let's pause right there really fast. So it's just not. We don't have the tests. Again, medical professionals are going down now. Like, the numbers in cases and deaths are skyrocketing. We don't have the proper equipment, whether it be ventilators or masks or gowns. Robert Kraft just flew in 1.7 million masks, I think it is, but that's vastly inadequate for the size of the problem, right? And, some wealthy people are contributing money, small amounts, and compared to their wealth, for one, but also compared to the problem. I mean, the leadership across the board, they don't care, frankly. They don't care if millions of people die. But, they are just woefully, negligently inadequate in all of their actions. Not all leadership. Gavin Newsom and Andrew Cuomo are definitely better than a lot of these other leaders. Bernie Sanders is obviously the strongest and most progressive fighter on this front right now. And there's other champions in Congress, AOC, whatever, but for the most part, leadership has just been woefully negligently inadequate in their approach to this, and it's devastating because people are fucking dying. Anyway, so prerequisites. We don't have the testing, so I mean, we'll see if that changes. I mean, there's gonna be tests. I mean, a lot of these people are just like going to the anyway. Sills' comments to NFL.com came 2 days after the league's general counsel, Jeff Posh, told reporters on a conference call that the expectation is to begin the regular season as scheduled in September. Okay. Sills acknowledged that outcome is just one of many given the fluidity of the pandemic's effect and how the country continues to try to deal with it. Let's also note that this thing is going to come in waves, especially considering the fact that there are some states shut down and some states not shut down. This thing's going to ricochet throughout the country like fucking shrapnel. It's going to be devastating. I think what was implied there by Posh was to say we are not at a point where we are saying that is absolutely not going to happen, so we should continue our planning and preparations as if we're going to be able to do that, Sills told NFL.com. But obviously, we're going to have to evaluate that along the way and follow what the recommendations are from public health officials and from our infectious disease experts and others. Okay, so pause there for just a quick second. So that's actually massively important, because what does that mean? That means that they are going to play it by ear as this goes along. Okay, and again, a lot of our leadership is not taking this seriously, so they're putting out tons of misinformation. There's still tons of states that are several states that are not shut down. So as that continues to be the case, and every day that continues to be the case, the level to which that this needs to be taken seriously will not occur in the realms of, you know, corporate America and so on and so forth. The NFL, just like all of these corrupt politicians that are doing this, they care about their money and their power and their stature and stuff like that. So they are going, I mean, the draft is not canceled, right? And again, I don't see a reason why they would need to cancel it since they could do it all digitally. But I mean, they're pushing for the season to start and pack the stadiums. That's just absolutely insane. No logical person would be able to conclude that in the months to come, especially as, you know, training camp and stuff gets canceled, that they would be ready to start the season. Okay, but they are pushing for that. Why? Because all they care about is their money, man, their money, and they need to make sure that the NFL continues to thrive as a you know, number one entertainment attraction in the world. Right? This fucking coronavirus pandemic is just super inconvenient for them. So they're gonna play it by ear. Okay, which means that in the meantime, they are, as he said, they are going to continue planning for the season to start. So, you know, the draft is going to happen most likely, and again, I think it still should. But, you know, if the teams are planning to go into it like they're going to start the season, I mean, look, this is not really part of this conversation, but, you know, then if the Dolphins trade up, get rid of a bunch of draft capital, every day that goes by, I feel more and more convinced that the Dolphins are going to trade up to the number one spot. Do they take Burrow? I don't know. Maybe they still take Tua. I think it's more likely at this point that they would take Burrow over Tua because of his medical concerns and because they're incapable of actually letting their doctors take a look at him. But I'm growing more convinced every day, even to the point where I think that is now going to be my official prediction that they are going to trade up to the number one spot, most likely to take Joe Burrow. But so if they do that and then the 2020 season gets canceled, well then these contracts that they signed in the offseason are going to be even more foolish. And I mean, because it's only short term, right? Like it's potential short-term fixes, the contracts that they signed. Like none of those guys are going to be around in the next few years. Like they're not, most of them are not going to live out the 3 to 5 year contracts that they have, regardless of whether or not there's a season this year or next year. In fact, it'd be less likely because then they would have to go throughout the season and get bruised and battered. Anyway, the point of this is to talk about the season itself. So, but it would just be a massive disaster, because then it would be a completely wasted year. If they get Tua, if they get Burrow, it's just a completely wasted year. Anyway, but let's continue on with what they had to say. Among the conditions Sills noted must be met for the NFL to begin practices and games on time is the availability of point-of-care coronavirus tests, which yield quick results and can be done off-site from hospitals, for example, which we're not even close to that point yet, as it stands right now. Could it change? Possibly. I doubt it. Not with the people that we have in charge, particularly our president. He just fired a Navy captain from a ship because he was sounding the alarm that there was an outbreak on a carrier. On a fucking U.S. carrier, there was an outbreak, and he sounds the alarm. He's like, we got a problem here, and Trump fired him. Okay, well, with that, I'm like, it's just mind-boggling to me, anybody that can see that and be like, this dude's doing great things. Or look at that and say, yeah, we got this under control and things are going to get better and not worse. No, things are going to get far, far worse. Anyway, and the removal of gathering districts due to the pandemic. As long as we're still in a place where when a single individual tests positive for the virus, that you have to quarantine every single person who was in contact with them in any shape, form, or fashion, then I don't think you can begin to think about reopening a team sport, Sills told NFL.com, because we're going to have positive cases for a very long time. And that's true. And we're going to continue. We are shooting through the roof. Like, it's crazy, man. And so this is going to go on for months. Honestly, I'm not an expert, but from my calculations, I consider myself to be a relatively reasonable and logical person. I find it pretty hard to believe at this point, with the projections and where this is expected to go, that there's going to be a 2020 season. I can almost assuredly say that all of like training camp and stuff like that is going to be canceled. That the draft could very well be the last of football that we have for the 2020 season. We could go into the draft. It could be this big televised digital spectacle, where fucking Roger Goodell is sitting in his fucking in his office in his house in his mansion somewhere, and he reads the names, and then you go to fucking FaceTime of the player or whatever, and blah blah blah. Right? That could be the last of football that we have for the 2020 season. That is extremely, extremely possible. Football has been the one major sport whose calendar has been unaffected by the coronavirus due to the fact that it takes place in the fall. Others, such as basketball, baseball, and hockey, have been put on hold for the immediate future. Tennis has shut down. All these sports, golf is shut down. All these sports are shutting down. And that's the right thing to do, because you risk people's lives if you don't. And again, to me, it seems pretty inconceivable at this point that the NFL will be able to start on time as well, but we'll see. Sills said the NFL won't act in a vacuum when it decides on how it will handle playing games, and noted there's no current timeline for when that decision must be made. Well, there is. The beginning of the season. I mean, you gotta decide and before training camp and stuff, like, you gotta decide before the fact to close it. You can't like open it and then have a breakout and then be like, oh, well, we're gonna shut down. That's not the right way to go. You obviously have to decide before that stuff. We will make those decisions in consultation with our experts at the time, Sills said. That decision will not be made in isolation. The NFL will not be charting a course different than other professional sports, other parts of society, college sports, universities, and businesses. Let's note that there have been reports that college football is expecting to open on time. So all of football is expecting to open on time, which could be a total disaster. If they were to do that, it would be catastrophic. It would be, and the people who made that decision should be held accountable to the fullest extent and prosecuted criminally for putting people's lives in danger. Much like a lot of these politicians should also be held accountable and prosecuted criminally for the deaths that have occurred because, they again, care about their stock portfolios more and refuse to take the necessary action. Anyway, I know that's kind of a dreadful video, dreadful topic that is, but unfortunately, I mean, it's massively relevant, and, you know, it's, again, the draft is probably going to be the last thing that we have that's actually like full-on football related until who knows when. So we'll see how things play out, and we'll keep an eye on it, and obviously I'll keep giving you guys updates as they occur. And yeah, so that's where I'm going to end this. I hope you guys enjoy my videos and my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.